Hello and welcome to PropTechBuzz, a business podcast on global PropTech, where we talk to founders and CEOs from all over the globe and learn from them how they're building and managing PropTech companies. So we have an exciting guest today, Shubhankar Dongre, who is the co-founder of Zapkey and PropStack. And Zapkey is India's first home sale guarantee platform that builds trust and transparency in real estate. And PropStack is leading in real estate and finance data and analytics platform in India. I have been trying to get somebody from Zapkey and PropStack because I've admired them. I've read a lot about them, but I wanted to have somebody from the leadership team to come over and talk. And Shubhankar promptly accepted this invite yesterday, and very keen to have him. So before we ask him questions, let's welcome Shubhankar. Shubhankar, welcome to PropTech Buzz. How are you doing today?
Happy to be here, Ravi. I'm doing very well. Thank you. How about yourself?
Good. You are my second guest today. I'm on a marathon today. I'm talking about lots of prop tech topics. So my last guest was from Slovak. So he's building a software product for real estate developers. So that was quite intense and enjoyed completely. And now I'm completely shifted to you on what Zapkey and PropStack is all about. So, but before we get into Zapkey and PropStack, let's set the context here. All right, let's know about you a bit on to see, okay, what's your career story been? How did PropTech happen? How did you evolve? How did your career got into PropTech?
Yeah, sure. So look, both the businesses, right? Zapkey and PropStack. Zapkey is a consumer-focused business. PropStack is a B2B business. But at the core of both of them are two things. One is, of course, the sectoral focus, which is property, and the other real core at its heart is data. At both, and I'm talking about both businesses, right? And this completely and nicely, I mean, it's not a story that I've really curated, but it's sincerely how it has panned out for me, in two parts. So when I graduated from my engineering college, which is called VJTI in Bombay, in 2004, I think the general trend around that time as an engineer, more or less in India, was to join one of the or aspire to join one of the big software firms, something like an Infosys or a TCS. But Infosys was always the go-to choice. It was extremely sought after, and I mean there was nothing different on my campus as well. But in all honesty, that was not really my bent. I wasn't very sure what I wanted to do. I was kind of sure what I did not want to do. And one of my friends, one of my seniors, asked me to, why don't I give a shot to a company called Fractal Analytics,
Mm-hmm.
which a lot of people know about today, is a $1 billion+ company built beautifully over the last 2 decades by its founders. I have tracked their journey ever since, and it's just everything to admire about how that business has been built. And my friend asked me to interview at Fractal. I said, why not? I found out a little bit about it. It's basically, it is a lot of things today, a lot of things to do with artificial intelligence. Back then, I don't, definitely AI was not a buzzword. Nobody had heard about it, but the way it was described to me was a data company that essentially collected data from its clients, crunched it, and pulled out, at least for me, unheard of insights and actionable insights, um, that 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 can be proactively acted upon. So I went and interviewed with the founders. I was quite impressed. I wanted to join. Fortunately, they liked me. I joined the company, and then the next 3 years was just a wonder ride. It was wonderful. It's basically the exposure to large corporates, not only in India, but for me, it was also in the Asia Pacific region. We're talking about, mostly my focus was financial institutions as clients, but I did get exposure to consumer CPG companies as well, where we'd collect a lot of data that they collected at their end, and we crunched it, using multiple techniques at our end, techniques that we learned on the go, and then pulled out insights. I mean, for example, we did predictive analytics to kind of assess risk propensity for credit card or default propensity for credit card customers for banks. Or there was marketing mix models where you would sort of design marketing campaigns or how you wanted to position your products optimally, so on and so forth. And for was back in 2004, that was just magical, right? So I did that. I mean, I was fortunate enough to have that exposure in the first phase of my career. And in 2007, 2008, and the MBA happened to me. So I went to ISB, the Indian School of Business in Hyderabad, for a year. Now, around 2007, 2008 was an interesting year because the love for data had never left me. And I always wanted to apply my love for data somewhere, right? I would say data as an industry had still not evolved, offering the multiple opportunities that you have today. But what interestingly happened also, generally from an industry perspective, 2007, 2008, the real estate sector was literally booming leading up to 2007, not only in India, but globally as well, right? And there was just a lot happening. I mean, especially in and around our campus in ISB, I think it was the Chandrababu Naidu government at that time had done wonders, right? Large back offices were being built every month. Microsoft brought its big back office near ISP. There was Infosys was already there. You had Honeywell, so on and so forth. And there was just so much construction activity. Jobs in real estate were asunder, and it definitely piqued my interest, right? So I chose once again, like I did during my engineering days, I chose to go a little bit against the grain. During my MBA, the destination of preference was strategy consulting firms, which was not something, once again, I wanted to do. Real estate caught my fancy. And I joined JLL in their capital markets team straight out of ISB. JLL, as most people know, is an American property consulting firm, massive company, huge pedigree. Unfortunately, a couple of months straight out of ISP, the global financial crisis hit the world, and real estate as an asset class went from gold to dust overnight. Luckily for me, I was in a good place. JLL is, like I said, a pedigreed firm. There weren't layoffs per se. Business was slow, but it was just a fantastic time to learn about the sector. And that honestly was another thing that, I mean, once again, I would say I was fortunate. I was lucky to get into something. Yes, there was a little bit of thought this time that went into selecting where I wanted to be, unlike when I landed in Fractal. But I did fall in love with the sector once again, right? So once again, I had a 3 to 4 year journey with JLL, and then the desire constantly kept burning. I always felt there was a huge opportunity for a data play in property. Things of that sort were already happening in the Western markets, but in India it was unheard of. Right. And generally, if you think about property, real estate, stroke India, right, the common consensus would be murky, information asymmetry, so on and so forth, right? So it just made that much more sense, if I may, for the introduction of high quality data into deal making, into transactions, into how individuals like you and I transact, into how corporates and entities and large financial institutions transact in the Indian property space. So, and once again, lucky for me, along the way, I met my co-founders. Stroke of luck, I would say. We just bumped into each other, felt similarly about data and property, and said, look, we all come from property backgrounds. Why don't we think about doing something in this space? There is huge scope for application. Now, contrary to what the world probably does think about India, it's actually quite a transparent country. right? Our legal system, our laws have been formed in such a way that, unlike a lot of the developed markets where yes, data is available to a certain extent, India is a highly transparent country. Literally every transaction in India, when you do a property transaction, whether it is a sale, purchase, mortgage, individual level, corporate level, across sub asset classes like homes, offices, warehouses, etc., the moment, look, for that transaction to be legally admissible in court and recognized by the government, in case that it goes into a dispute, you have to go register it with the government. The moment you do that, it becomes a public document where literally you, I, or anybody else can go and under certain processes can go and source these documents and pull out high quality information that can be acted upon. So we figured that out in early 2012 and literally built a tech stack to source this information from government servers. Of course, another thing that went our way at that time as well was registration departments across states in India were digitizing. Everything was offline before that. And if digitization was not happening, there was no way we could have built a tech stack to pull this information in volumes and do something about it. So that worked in our favor as well. And we formed our first venture called PropStack, which is basically a B2B platform that makes high quality real estate, property transaction data, and other property related data now, including financial data, available to institutional clients. And from then the journey is sort of just been unbelievable.
Got it. Did you have access to these government data? Like, what was the government was giving free access to its data from the server publicly, or like what was the access rights that you had?
It's public domain data. It continues to be public domain. So it doesn't even fall under RTI. So literally you as an individual can either go to a website, depending on what state, what geography you're in, and punch in the requisite input information to search for what exactly you need, whose transaction, which transaction, and you can pay a little bit of a fee and pull it out. Back then, the same process was happening offline, where you had to physically walk up to the sub registrar's office, pay them a fee, do a search, and procure a copy of the document that you're looking for. It's all straight up public domain. There is really no barrier as such.
Do we have 100% coverage now in all property transactions in India? Is that how it is digitized?
Are you asking me if we have 100% coverage, or are you asking me if the government has done?
If the government has digitized, all the states are digitized the transaction data, including the past transactions of a certain property.
So two parts to your question. First part answer straight up is no. It's still work in progress, but has come a phenomenally long way from the day it was not digitized. So all I would say the high volume, high ticket size states are already online, are digitized. So Maharashtra, Karnataka, Tamil Nadu, Telangana, so on and so forth. Then there are states like, say, Haryana, where obviously the prime market is Gurgaon, where they've gone online. Digitization is a work in progress, where some of it is online. They're still figuring out ways to make everything come online. And then there are other states where there isn't much institutional interest per se in those property markets. I mean, for example, you talk about Assam or things of that sort, right? They'll take time to be fully digitized. But I would say at least the top 8 to 10 markets are definitely well digitized. Your second question about historical data. I think the oldest fully digitized records for a state is going to be Maharashtra, which goes probably as far back as 2002. And anything before 2002 has to go through a separate procurement process, which is not straightforward. But I think the other states generally will hover around 2010, 11, from a digital availability perspective.
The reason I'm asking this, I had Sanjay Mandava, who's from Landit. So he is also disrupting the land records
Right.
space. So he is also building this data layer, trying to build analytics on top of that and stuff like that. So primarily, so once you had access to all this data, what was your business model like? You said institutionals that you wanted to provide, but did you wanted to build a layer of analytics, or you wanted to clean up the data and make it ready for consumption? What was your business model earlier?
So look, straight up, the opportunity first was just simple availability of data. There was just no access to anybody, meaningful access, right? Like I said, you can go and individually get one or two records, but as a financial institution, you want to look through meaningful volumes of data, and that was just never available, right? Step one for us was to collect as many historical transactions and keep that nicely cleaned up and standardized, because like I said, this is a state subject. So the availability and the way the data looks also was kind of heterogeneous. So it had to be standardized in the way it was available. So just making data available was step one, right? Step two was we started with a focus on office as a sub asset class. And then step two was to sort of expand that across sub asset classes to residential, warehouses, so on and so forth. Phase two for us was, and obviously once we had historical data, it was about maintenance and being up to date. So we generally tried to keep on average a 30-day update cycle where we are up to date with the data with a max lag of 30 days, right? Phase two was then, of course, analytics. But the idea was always to, look, we did not want to necessarily be a back office for financial institutions where they say, look, give us this data, crunch it in this way, do this, do that, and give it to us. We always wanted to create a product. So that means we spent a lot of time with their analysts understanding what is it that they spend most of the time doing with raw data. Once we got a decent hang of that, we actually created do-it-yourself levers and tools on top of what the data looked like on our platform online, where analysts could now literally pull a few levers here and there and sort of slice and dice the data and look at it the way they would generally do it in an Excel. So literally, we wanted to mimic what they did offline in an Excel, but online, right? And of course, the analytics evolved. The more we learned about what they want, how they look at it, the more we realized what we need to update from an analytics perspective.
Got it.
The third thing, Ravi, was use cases. Right now, it's not a single use case. When you talk about real estate in India, it's anywhere for that matter, it's not a single use case. It's not a big institutional investor or a private equity fund looking to invest. I mean, you're talking about business development, say for large property consultants, you're looking for comparable information that, say, property developers want. You're looking for deep forensic analysis that, say, lenders want to do before sanctioning a loan to anybody. So we also spend time learning about multiple use cases and provided those levers and filters online as well. So the idea was to make it a one single place online, a web interface where you look no further. You just sit down on PropStack and do everything you need to do, essentially making life easy.
Right. And who were your big customer segments? Like I'm sure data is used by so many vendors, from banks to financial institutions to developers to real estate agents maybe. But what was your primary segment?
Primary segment was and continues to be funds, private equity funds, both domestic as well as FDI, foreign funds. That continues to be our largest segment. And then I think the rest of it was fairly evenly divided between property developers, lenders, large property consulting firms. And then we have some very interesting other use cases, especially when it comes to business development. So you're talking about glass manufacturers, carpet manufacturers who are looking for new lease data where they can find new tenants who they can sell their products to. Another very, very interesting customer we've had for the longest time is the government of India itself. For us, that was a massive, massive win, right? I mean, to be able to have your own government subscribing to you is just it's just a different feeling.
I'm connecting the dots. Sanjay Mandava from Landit also said the same, that government is actually using Landit for their own data. Excellent. So I see. I'm from a data background as well. So in my previous organization, Priceable. So we sourced a lot of public data, and we created automatic valuation models. Okay, so that means
Right.
you put in all the data for the asset and the neighborhood data, and then the AI and ML model would predict what the valuation of that property is, and that valuation model is used by banks, by financial institutions, and other players in the market, including real estate brokers and agents and everybody. So just curious, I didn't intend to ask this. Is this a use case that you see can be prominent or is prominent in India now, coming up with valuation models, valuations of
Ravi, we already do it. So this is something we do in Zapkey, right?
Okay.
Right. Zapkey is a consumer business. We are essentially solving the illiquidity problem in the resale home space. Resale homes as a sector is a highly illiquid yet very large, about $45 billion annual market. Really sluggish. Can do a lot better. So one of the things that we do is, look, I mean, there have been lots of models now across the world over the past 7-8 years that have come up, trying to solve for resale home liquidity, right? I mean, one big example, and definitely the torchbearer, is Open Door from the US, which literally said, we'll just go buy your homes. But essentially what everybody is doing is, step one is to target supply, right? A seller. That's where you begin the solving journey. Now, when you approach a seller, be it Open Door, be it Zapkey, or be it anybody else, the most essential step to be taken is a valuation of that asset. That is where the problems generally lie, right? How do you convince a seller of the value of his or her home, right? Because if you get that wrong, and more or less the nervousness is at the seller's end, that they don't want to get it wrong on the lower side. They always want to overcompensate on the higher side, right? But the moment you go overcompensate on the higher side, it becomes a difficult asset to sell. So you need to have a believable, acceptable valuation mechanism that you can convince a seller of, saying, look, this is a fair value of your home that can be sold out in the market, right? So we use a lot of data in Zapkey as well. We plug it into our system. We've built an AVM as well, but it is not a fully automated one. We still believe in the Indian market is such that complete automation is still a pipe dream. You need some sort of manual intervention. I'd say majority of our valuation is automated, and most of the automation is based on what, right? We simply said, look, valuation firms exist, valuation companies that do offline valuations, largely for banks, right? Whenever a bank has to disburse a home loan, one of the steps that has to be done is the asset or property valuation. And they have empaneled valuation vendors who do that for them. What we did was we hired people from these companies, understood the valuation mechanism, which more or less is uniform or identical. And we digitized most of the process. What we made easier was that we were sitting on so much data, which is an essential component or ingredient, like you said, in an AVM. So for us, it became an easy thing to do. So it is a critical component of our Zapkey business.
Excellent. Cool. And it solves the illiquidity because I'll tell you how some of the data players here in Europe, they want to have people ownership of the valuation of the property at any given point of time, because that's how they will decide whether my property is now hot to make this. Otherwise, what happens is people just buy and then never sell the property. So the transaction frequency of a property in a lifetime is often less. But if you provide them proactively that your property is actually hot now. You can make those decisions and you can transact more. So that's exactly where the focus is for most of the data players who have their own AVMs. And you rightly pointed that it's always a mixed hybrid between a physical on-site person and an AVM. And usually banks have multiple AVMs, so because they need to consolidate to see different perceptions, and AVMs have different parameters. Okay, so that's why they do a consolidated effort, 3 to 4 major players, and that's how they come up with the final valuation models. But great to know that I was not aware that India is also having. So are you one of the front runners when it comes to automated valuation models?
It's a difficult question for me to answer, Ravi, because um, we do AVMs for largely our internal ops, right? It's not something that we are kind of selling or as a vendor
Got it.
providing AVMs to a third party or a customer. It literally is for our internal ops, for us
Got
to convince the supply side
Mhm.
when we try to onboard them, right? So
Got
we do it in huge volumes. I mean, our volumes are big because we approach thousands of sellers on a monthly basis,
Hmm.
right? But a tough question for me to answer if we are the front runners or not.
Got it. So let's talk about, because you jumped onto Zapkey. I wanted to have a transition there. Let's go back to where we were with PropStack. So were you the front runners at least on the data side of real estate, or were there already other players who were solving data for real estate?
So prior to us, there were a couple of companies who still exist.
Mhm.
The only difference was that the manner of collection of data for them
Mhm.
and then making it available was
Right.
more focused on breadth and less on depth. In the sense, we were and continue to be the front runners of high quality registration procured data. Um, Sorry, Ravi, your screen is a bit frozen. Is it at my end or yours? Can you hear me? Hello?
I can hear you.
Okay, sorry.
I can
So,
hear
like
you.
I
Go
said,
ahead.
we were definitely the front runners and continue to be. I mean, we were literally the first ones and continue to be the leaders in terms of the quality of information that we get straight from government servers, registration data. Prior to us, there were a couple of data companies, but they never got it from registration data. This was more of, I would say, market research, sort of secondary information collection from site office, word of mouth, etc., etc. So they were
Right.
able to create a width in terms of saying we cover 40 cities, we cover 100 cities,
Right.
but I'm not very sure how actionable that data was. It was a good reference, but I
Right.
don't know if you could really make hard transaction decisions on them because that data did not come from actual transactions themselves.
Got it.
We were the ones who innovated. We were the ones who built this tech stack, pulling
Got it.
information from registration data and volumes, and we continue to do so. And I'm fairly confident we are the front runners still.
Got it. So who are the prominent players today that you would say that, okay, these are the reliable players in the market today along with you?
So I'd say 3 or 4 companies come to mind. There's a firm called CRE Matrix that does something similar to us.
Mhm.
Uh, then there are older firms that have been in the real estate data space.
Right.
Prop Equity, Lysis Forest, who've been around for a while.
Right.
Um, for a long time, JLL has had its own sort of data service called REIS, Real Estate Intelligence Service.
Got it.
Yeah, and I'm guessing upstarts like Landeed now with a focus more on land records, but they've entered the space. I think there's another company called Teal, if I'm not mistaken. So
Mm.
I mean, it's a good situation that I was able to name 8 or 10 companies
Yeah.
because the more you get into this, the more the market matures,
Right.
and the less time we have to spend on educating the market for the
Always.
need
Yeah.
for quality information.
Excellent. Yeah, yeah. Always. I mean, usually that's that's the hard work done by a early mover, but always it's not the early mover who benefits. Sometimes the second mover is benefiting from the market education that the first mover has done. So I completely understand that. So primarily, all of them are doing the same kind of a business model where they are selling some kind of a data solution as a subscription basis, or it is on demand basis. What are the business models that they're offering to their clients?
I think from my perspective, there are only two models, and then there is a hybrid of both. One is a
Mm-hmm.
subscription model, one is a service model, and
Correct.
then there is one with a subscription plus service, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, most of us who have a core subscription model,
Right.
once again, cannot completely peel off from services.
Mm-hmm.
The service element will always be around to support your customers, your clients, because all said and done, like I said, a digital solution cannot always be 100%.
Correct.
There are going to be times when you are not able to satisfy a certain requirement for a client where you will need to have a backup service team.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, like I said, just these are the core models that are available, that are around, and I think most of us are doing a hybrid model.
Got it. But mostly the pricing is based on the number of API calls to the data. Is that how it is, or are there other subscription to the products and stuff like that?
I mean, look, not every client has the same identical volume requirement of data. So, you know, pricing has to be customized by
Mm.
usage, by requirement. Now
Got
the parameters there are probably number of seats.
it. Right.
So, right, there will be a base number of seats, and then there is an incremental number of seats that you get to charge.
Got it.
Then you cross section or cross tab that with the number of markets you give access to. So
Yeah.
it could be 10 people in a company with access only to Bombay, or
Right.
there could be 2 people in a company with access to Bombay, Pune, Bangalore, Hyderabad, Delhi, etc.,
Got it.
right? And then there is a third layer, which is depth of data,
Got it.
where it works on mostly a credit system, where either you can have anything from a limited credit access, limited data view,
Mm.
to something like an unlimited, infinite access. So, I mean, these are more or less the layers or levels, parameters that
Got it.
affect overall pricing.
Got it. So where is PropStack today in terms of the size of the company, and what's the growth like?
So, in terms of size of the company, obviously, that is, these are financial numbers that ideally don't want to talk about right now on this call. But we're a 35 to 40 member team at PropStack. The company is definitely growing, so that's good news, right? See, the other thing to understand, Ravi, is sooner than later, data players, especially focusing on real estate, will come to the realization that a pure data company in real estate in India will hit a ceiling in terms of
Mm.
growth, right?
Right.
Because the market is only that large,
Got
right?
it.
Now, add to that, when you have, like I said, 7, 8 players, it becomes competitive,
Right.
right? So the one who has a better product, better service quality, etc., will be able to get a larger pie of the market.
Got it. Yeah.
But the effort then constantly has to be to overlay value-added products over simply providing data or information, right?
Got it.
We've been fortunate enough to not only have a high, over 90% renewal rate with our clients over the past several years, which is great news for
Mhm.
us.
Mhm.
But of course, we are onboarding new clients. We are all onboarding interesting new sub products for use cases that we learn of on a daily basis.
Mhm.
So I'd say pre-pandemic, we probably had a year of flat growth, but ever since COVID, we've resumed our growth trajectory in PropStack. So the idea is to definitely continue growing the way we are, with a
Right.
heavy focus on, what is it that the next level or lever of growth for us would be that we can overlay on PropStack.
Right.
more of a forward integration into the use cases that we've already been catering into.
Got it. So when you said that the winners will be the ones who are innovating on the additional value-added layers on top, where do you see are the big opportunities? Is this like predictive ability, or what are the use cases that you can foresee where you think will be really valuable?
See, I'll give you a very interesting use case, Ravi. Fortunately or unfortunately for us, in India, property is still quite a legacy sector when it comes to tech adoption, right? Property in general globally is a laggard when it comes to tech. And when you look at India, let's say we are a few more years behind when you compare it to the West, from a tech adoption perspective.
Right.
So when we think about this, we realize that the biggest opportunity lies in simplifying and solving for the base level or base layer of problems, especially when it comes to efficiency, right? When you talk about prediction, predictive models, AI, etc., sure, I mean, that is what is hot today. Everybody wants to do that.
Right.
But you start thinking about its application, applicability, and acceptance, right? Acceptance for sort of new superfluous technologies is always going to be a hard sell. And if you're able to get to the root and solve a absolutely basic problem, that is where the biggest opportunity lies. And I'll give you a very good example now, right? Home loans. The processing of a home loan in India has been literally identical and the same since the first home loan was disbursed, I think, in 1972 by HDFC, right? The back-end processing is completely offline.
Okay.
So when Ravi goes and approaches a lender for a home loan, they're going to do two things. One is they're going to look at your income statements, and that there is enough technology to do that quickly over here.
Right. Yeah.
The harder bit is they're going to do some sort of diligence on the property for which you're going to take a home loan.
True.
Usually that is going to be a valuation and a title check.
Yes.
Today, banks hand these two processes to their vendors. Title check goes to an empaneled lawyer, and valuation goes to a valuation company both of them will take about a week to 2 weeks, come back with their reports, which are offline.
Right.
And then their fees, which is basically passed on as a processing fee, will be given to Ravi, saying, Ravi, you owe us 5,000, 10,000, 15,000 bucks for this case. Right. Now think about what can be done over here. Why can't this process be digitized? Why does it have to cost so much? Why does it have to take so long? You spoke about AVMs.
Right.
Can AVMs replace the valuation bit? Can a one-click AVM or even a 1 hour AVM replace a 1 week effort offline? Point number one. Point number two, we're sitting on a huge volume of historical transaction data. Can that not be connected reverse chronologically all the way to the first sale and create a chain of transactions which will basically be a replica of a title report, or at least a core ingredient of a title report? This also can be done in a click. Now, once you're able to compress a bank's home loan process from 10 days to 2 clicks, the cost comes down to absolutely nothing. It's a world of change. Right? I'll tell you another inefficiency in the same process. You're not going to go to one lender when you go approach for a home loan, right? You will go to 2 or 3. Right? You will try to get the best terms possible. Now, unfortunately, most times, all 3 banks will take your case and give it to their empaneled vendors, who a lot of times are common to all 3 banks. So now, what am I understanding here? That Ravi's processing has been replicated 3 times by the vendors. They've made 3 times the money when it should have been done only once.
True.
Right? And this then sort of, when you think about it, presents a massive opportunity for creating some sort of what CAMS did for the mutual fund industry in India, creating a backbone technology where a single centralized system processes home loans once for every case, and all banks need to do is plug in to the system, right? And all they need to do is their credit officers need to take a go no go call, and if it's a go, offer terms then where the customer can quickly pick. Highly efficient, right? This has been one of our pet projects, one of our dreams that we've been working on. Look, way easier said than done. We've spent a lot of time on this. We continue to spend time on this. We've come a long way. But, for me, this is the greatest example, one of many things that can be done using data in the property space in India at the absolute base level, right? This is solving a base efficiency level problem.
Right. Got it. Thank you. I just wanted to know the sense of the market here. How big is this market for, say, prominent 4, 5, 6, or 8 or 10 players in a market like India? What is the market size in terms of revenues that we're looking at for somebody who has exhausted all the reserves in terms of data coverage and then value-added services on top?
Look, it's a tough estimation, and I'll tell you why. I mean, if you ask me, pure data, you're talking about data players, right?
I'm talking about pure data players. Yeah, this segment.
Pure data players, right? Yeah. Pure data, making data available, making data accessible, just a pure base model is not a huge market. I would say it is no larger than, I mean, this is literally being optimistic, $20 million.
Only, is it? Okay.
At a absolute base level, saying taking data and making it available, right?
Okay.
But now when you talk about things like I gave you an example about home loan processing, and you think about multiple use cases where you're adding value to the property sector, to the system, you're getting into the system, right?
Yeah.
Sky's the limit there, Ravi, right? Now you need to start thinking about the actual market sizes. For example, just like I said, I mean, Zapkey, and we have not come to Zapkey, but I just want to make a reference right now.
Yeah, we can actually transition to Zapkey if you want. Yes.
Look, I mean, like I said, Zapkey at its core uses data, right? We're still a data company.
What is that? So you were happy with building a PropStack. What led you to go to Zapkey, and what is Zapkey? What was the transition story to build Zapkey?
Good segue, because we are literally on that topic, right? Market size, Ravi. The more we looked at the market size from a PropStack perspective, we realized that the base data availability model is only this big, right? With so many players, that is the size of the market. We have to make peace with it.
Right.
So we are talking about now literally getting into the Indian systems, right? You have data. You've made data available to customers. They are doing whatever they want to in their business with the data.
Right.
It's time for data companies to do something with the data themselves. Right. One example I gave again is home loans.
Right.
We said, look, the only way to really make this market big, make this business big, make it $1 billion business, is to actually take a hold of the data that we've collected and build a business on top of it.
Right.
Right. Solve for something that at its, once again, absolute base level is highly inefficient. Home loans was one. Resale is a big one. Right. So when you look at Zapkey from a distance, we look like a transaction model where we are helping people buy and sell. But how are we doing that? Data is a core critical component over there. Right. So what is Zapkey? Zapkey is India's first home sale guarantee platform, right? Because like I probably 10 or 15 minutes ago made a reference, the problem is illiquidity. Who's suffering from the illiquidity? The home seller. The home seller at his core has two very simple requirements in life. In fact, the requirement is one, which has a part A and a part B to it. They just want predictability. They want predictability of price. They want predictability of time. When will my home sell? How much will I get? That's all they care about, right? But these two things create so much stress in their system, right? It's incredible. I mean, selling a home in India is a highly stressful, very unhappy event.
Right.
Right?
So you go back to default, which is doing nothing. You just wait and watch. And that's why you lose precious years doing nothing, isn't it?
Absolutely right. I mean, I am telling you, I have come across so many home sellers now since we've started Zapkey, where it is kind of the customer behavior is so deeply ingrained now into the system that what we are trying to undo will take some time. I mean, home sellers who want to hold on to probably an unrealistic sale price are willing to wait indefinitely, not understanding the repercussions of a home loan that they continue to pay, time value of money. I mean, the amount of time they're holding their home for a dream price, they have absolutely no inkling of how much money they are actually losing, right? Unwilling to sell at a fair price. And look, Zapkey is not a platform which is trying to sort of create a distress situation for a seller. No, we are not giving distress valuations. These are not discounted valuations. These are fair market values where we are using core transaction data as the ingredient for the valuation. So when a valuation report goes to a seller, he can literally see the value at which his next door neighbor sold the home. So now if a next door neighbor sells an identical home for 1 crore, why on earth would you ever think your home will sell for 1.2 crores? Right? So that's where we are with Zapkey, right? So the idea at Zapkey is we are a home sale guarantee platform where we are literally putting down some money to realistic home sellers. And these are guys we call realistic or motivated home sellers who agree to a fair price. Unmotivated sellers are those who want an unrealistic price, who in their heads also know they're not going to get it easily and are willing to wait it out 6 months, 9 months, 2 years, indefinite. They are not going to get predictability on price. They're not going to get predictability on time. But the realistic home seller will get a guarantee from Zapkey where we put down a little bit of money, give them a 90-day guarantee saying we will sell your home in the next 90 days or you keep the money we've given to you. And this value proposition is unheard of in the Indian system.
So help me understand the entire experience. Okay. So Zapkey as a product is offered to a motivated seller. I understand. But what's the experience? What is the seller paying you, and what the entire? Can you explain the interaction, please?
Sure. So Ravi, let's say hypothetically you're a home seller. Either you got to know of Zapkey or we got to know that you're a home seller. Right. So once it is established that Ravi is keen to sell his home, we take information from you about your home, and we turn around very quickly in under a day and give you a max couple of days, give you a valuation of your home. We give you a valuation range because this is a desktop valuation. Now, if you don't accept the range, right, then you don't come into our system immediately. You're a customer that we need to work on over the next few months to set a realistic pricing expectation, for which we have a different process. But say you say, look, this valuation range is acceptable to me. The next step is we actually send a physical person over for a physical inspection of your home to cross-verify that the information that you've given to us is accurate or not.
Got it.
Once the cross-verification is done, we give you a final valuation saying, look, the information checks out. This is a valuation of your home. If you agree to do this, we will give you, say, we have different models for different markets, but say we will give you 0.5% of your home's value as an upfront token.
Okay. Got it.
Okay. Then we sign an MOU with you saying, now that we've given you this token, this home is exclusively with us for sale for the next 90 days, right? If this home sells either through us, and the effort will be mostly through us only, or
Right.
if it gets sold in any which way, we obviously will get a fee for the sale of the home, because the promise we've made to you, Ravi, is that one way or another, your home will get sold for a minimum price that we have given you as a value.
Got it.
Right?
Right.
Within the next 90 days. If we
Right.
fail to do so, you get to keep the token we've given you. So now we're putting our money where our mouth is, which I don't think most sellers in India have ever heard of something like this. Right?
Right. So
Now,
what keeps you in a position of confidence to sell the property in the price range that you committed? Is this on the valuation confidence that you have gathered with your network or something of that sort, local network? Because valuation is very local, right? So where does your credibility and your know-how comes from?
So there are two things that give us the confidence, Ravi. One is absolutely spot on. You said valuation is something you have to get right, because the moment you overprice in a bid to onboard supply, you're done for. That home is not going to sell for that value, right? You're doomed for failure. So valuation gives us confidence, because the moment we know we have fairly priced this home in a sort of in a community or in a gated community or whatever you want to, in a society, right, that sells for this value, this a home of this configuration sells for this value. So we have enough confidence over there. Second thing, very interestingly, is unlike a lot of models who try to disrupt the middleman or disrupt the broker community, we think otherwise. We strongly think that the local broker literally is the infrastructure of the market, especially the resale market. You cannot do without them. These guys have been at it day in, day out for the last, God knows how many decades. And they are hyper local. Nobody knows those localities better than them. Right? So your best chance of finding a buyer and selling a home is through them. Yes, we have direct channels as well. We spend a bit of marketing, etc., etc. But these guys are our best distribution channel. So we work with them. We're happy to share our fees with them, because what this essentially means is we get to do more transactions. The more transactions we do, we all make money. Brokers make money. We make money. If we try and take them out of the system, we're going to end up doing lesser transactions. Yes, we'll keep all the fees, but we're never going to hit scale. So what gives us confidence also is this huge distribution network. I mean, in our first market, hyper-local market, I literally had only 30 members in my team. But they were interacting with 3,000 hyper-local brokers. You can only imagine the distribution, the reach, right? So these two things in combination, getting the pricing right and our access to the broker network that we work very closely with, gives us confidence in selling a home in under 90 days. And let me tell you, our average to sell a home for the homes that we've sold, we average only 45 days.
And your promise was 90 days, is it?
That's right.
Wow, nice. And where is Zapkey today? How many transactions, how many homes have you been able to sell? And when was this product introduced, by the way?
So honestly, Zapkey was born as an entity, as an idea in 2018. What we did in our initial years, Ravi, is we knew what we wanted to do. We knew what we wanted to solve. But it's a very tricky model, right? I mean, you can't go, you can't copy the open door model in India. It just doesn't work, right? Everybody's tried that across the world. You have to
Open door model was buying the property and selling it, right?
That's it.
Got it.
That is it. You can't do it in India.
Also capital intensive, right? You need
One
to
is
have
capital intensive. That is the biggest elephant in the room. The second problem is, of course, in India, we have a stamp duty. So if I buy a 100 rupee home, then I pay the government a 7 rupee stamp duty. But in India, a 100 rupee home will sell for 100 rupees only. So I'm already losing money. My economics don't work, right? So you can't do that over here.
Got it.
So look, we had to spend a lot of, and I can't even overstate the amount of time we spent with tax consultants and lawyers to figure out what the right model would be.
Right.
So it took us some years. So initially, what we did also, Ravi, see, the problem in resale in India is a lack of trust, right? Buyers don't trust price, buyers don't trust asset quality,
Right.
they hesitate to transact, sellers are unable to build that trust with buyers, etc.,
Right.
etc. We wanted to build a platform, Zapkey, that people trust. So in parallel, we wanted to build a brand. When you think about Zapkey, you think trust, right?
Right.
So going forward, people will want to transact with Zapkey using Zapkey as a platform. So while we
So,
did not get our
so where does the trust
sorry,
come from, by the way? So brand, I understand there is a brand
so I was
recognition.
coming to that point, right, Ravi? That
Yeah.
while we were trying to get our model right,
Mm-hmm.
we already had cracked data, right, with PropStack. We are sitting now across a bunch of cities with residential transaction data, where
Right.
you literally can type in a building's name and it'll drop down all the latest transactions. We made all of that available on Zapkey on a freemium model, right? And today, as we speak, Zapkey gets a couple of lakh users a month without us literally spending hardly anything on marketing. That creates our funnel because Zapkey literally has become a hygiene factor when anybody's transacting a residential property in these markets. Sellers, buyers will come to Zapkey, check the latest price. It literally became like the Kelly's Blue Book, if you're aware, in the US, right?
No, no.
All those years. So Kelly's Blue Book was something similar back, I think probably in the 70s or 60s, which was a directory, a physical directory for pricing references for resale cars. Right?
I
There was
see.
no such thing because ascertaining a price for a resale car is very hard, or at least in the 60s, it was way harder, right? But people needed some guidance, some reference. So that created a funnel for potential transactors, actual transactors, not people who are dilly-dallying, but actually in the market to transact. They would
Right.
come and use that book as a reference, and that kind of created a funnel of transactors.
Got it.
We
Yeah.
replicated that in Zapkey. We said, let's make this information available. People who want to transact will come to Zapkey. They want trust. They want to see, okay, this is what this home sold for last. Right. So now Zapkey has become a stamp of trust. So we said, let's make this available while we work on the actual transaction model. Right. So we spent a couple of years on the transaction model. Then, of course, COVID hit.
Right.
Took shaved off a year and a half there as well.
Right.
And by the time we literally got the transaction model right, it was, say, about end 2021.
Right.
Right. So I would say now we've been around for a little over a year in our first couple of markets. And we've done really well. We've sold over 300 homes. And now, we're opening up newer markets. We've expanded further into Bombay. We've recently launched Bangalore. So, yeah, that's the traction we've gained in the past 12 to 15 months.
300 homes is a big achievement, no? It's a big milestone. Just curious, are there other players with the same model, or is this unique?
Not the same model. There are two other players that we are aware of. One is called Home Exchange. One is called Ivy Homes. Different models attacking the same problem, but doing it differently, right? So I think Home Exchange is more of an upgrade solution where they help, and it's a great solution, by the way, because I'd say over 80% of the time, when somebody wants to sell a home, they usually do it to upgrade to a bigger, better home. So they kind of are available at that point of sale saying, we'll kind of either promise to sell your home or give some sort of, offer some sort of naked risk on the liquidation of the old home and help you upgrade to a new home. And not necessarily focused on the upgrade segment, but a similar-ish model in terms of a promise is what Ivy Homes is probably working on as well. Where either they promise to buy or, have definitely offering some sort of naked risk.
Got it.
Cover.
Excellent. Very, very interesting with the product here. Just curious about your fundraising journey for both PropStack and Zapkey?
So, look, I mean, very different businesses, so very different capital requirements. PropStack is, it's a cash flow business. It's a B2B business. Didn't need the kind of scaled very differently. So we didn't necessarily need to raise too much money. We were lucky enough to find a very, very supportive and interesting investor back in 2015, so PropStack also has a lot of global clients, interested in the Indian property sector. So one of our clients happened to be a portfolio company of the Daily Mail group from the UK.
What?
Yeah. And sorry?
Daily Mail is media company, no?
That's right. And even we were unaware, but they had a focus on investing in information companies across the world. So, right. So, our clients, our American clients, in fact, referred us to them. And it was more inbound and not really outbound. So they were interested in us. And, we raised almost $3 million from them back in 2015.
Right.
So it was literally our only institutional investment. We, of course, have very interesting, very seasoned professionals from the Indian real estate market on our cap table as well. But from an institutional investment perspective, that was the only capital raise that we did in PropStack in 2015.
Right.
Coming to Zapkey, we've already raised a seed round, a pre-seed round of a couple of $1 million last year. And we very recently, we've kind of kept it quiet. We've also onboarded a very, very interesting institutional investor a few weeks back.
Nice.
Right. So that is something we've not announced yet. But in the seed round, we had very, very interesting backers again. The seed was led by Gruhas PropTech, which is a PropTech focused fund run by Zeroda's founder Nikhil Kamath and Abhijit Pai.
Right.
And then we had participation from Bloom Ventures Founders Fund, the Kotak, the Kotak sort of group's founding team. Most of it came on as well.
Right.
DLF, the DLF family office also joined in on the round. So very, very interesting mix and a very high quality cap table, I would say.
Nice. Is Gruhas also somehow related to DLF? Are they from the same family or something, or are
they co-invest quite a bit. They have a sort of a cohort based investment sort of activity that they run through the year, and they do end up investing together quite a lot.
Nice. No, I wrote to Gruhas. I didn't hear back from them. I have to follow up with them just to see, because they made some interesting investments as well.
They have, yes.
Excellent. So my last question here is, what next? Where are you heading from here? Where do you see your next year, maybe 2 years from now on?
So both the businesses have a different curve, a different growth curve, a different plan. The focus in PropStack is, of course, heavy focus on, like I said, look, we've had over a 90% renewal rate from our legacy clients, and there's a reason for it. And that is something in terms of quality of product and service that we have to not only maintain, but continually improve. So that focus will continue over there, while we heavily invest on next level value add products where we want to forward integrate into use cases that we've catered to, like I said, with data all this while, right? So that will continue to be the focus at PropStack, and that will be built with a lot of patience. And should I say, I wouldn't say we really have a capital requirement for that in PropStack. We are well capitalized now. We have decent reserves, so we don't need to do that.
Got it.
From a Zapkey perspective, it is at the core of it. It's a marketplace business. It is a consumer business. It has to be scaled quite differently. It has to be hyper scaled because it's a business that will thrive on network effects, right? The more we scale, the more the network effects will compound.
Right.
you know what I'm talking about, and
Yeah.
that will need capital, the requisite capital infusion,
Right.
as we go along at a much faster clip than what PropStack will require, right?
Got it.
So the
Yeah.
focus remains that in Zapkey, where we will definitely have a heavy focus on raising funds continually.
Got it. Just curious from PropStack. So I have I speak to a lot of data real estate data companies, pure data. So there are also data players who go beyond the property. That means neighborhood data. Okay. Data in terms of, okay, where are the nearby hospitals are, what's the demography, what's the pollution, because it all contributes to the real estate information. And also institutional investors are also interested, right? So do you have plans to go beyond property and go wider in terms of what data you want to acquire? What
Good point. Good point. So, Ravi, when we thought about that, look, the core of PropStack's clients uh, comes from the financial side of things when it comes to real estate, right?
Mhm.
So, for them, financial information was a good supplement to property related information. So, our focus initially from a um, different data set was focusing on financial information. I'll give you an example.
Mhm.
Um, Say a hedge fund has invested in, say, a big listed lender in India,
Right.
right? So, right now that hedge fund wants to understand the quality of the portfolio of that lender, which is
Mhm.
not easily available. It is not openly available. Most of this information, to a certain extent, will probably be revealed on quarterly calls and things, or investor calls and things of that sort, right?
Right.
But the financial health of their portfolio companies, borrowers,
Right.
is information we got from the Ministry of Corporate Affairs, from the
Mm.
MCA, and we supplemented the asset level data with financial information to
Right.
give a more holistic view. Right?
Right.
We took that direction,
Right.
but you're right. Now, when it comes down to, say, other supplementary data, when you're talking about, I mean, it could literally be, there's a lot of data that can now be silos of data that can be interconnected, right?
Exactly. Like crime,
Geospatial,
like schools, like demography, like
geospatial information. You
yes,
know, there are
pollution.
companies solving for this, and I think from our perspective, we believe in partnering at this stage
Right.
because there are companies solving for this, right?
Right. Yeah.
It would be mutually beneficial for us to partner with these companies rather than try and build it ourselves. That's
Right.
our view.
Got it. Excellent.
So we are
Well, this.
always on the lookout.
Hmm. Cool. Yeah. Thank you again, Shubhankar. This brings us to the end of a very fascinating conversation with
My
Shubhankar.
pleasure.
It was quite dense, and I mean, anybody, not just in India, but even people outside, professional outside, if they want to get a sense of what's happening with the data players in India, I think this is a good masterclass. A one-on-one is something that, at least for me, because I had never spoken to anybody on the data side from India. But this was quite dense and very, very comprehensive. So thank you, Shubhankar. It just reveals a lot of your knowledge in this space, and learned a lot from here.
Pleasure is all mine, Ravi. Thanks for having me.
See you around, Shubhankar. Thank
All
you.
right. Take care. See you.